You're listening to Daily Prayer Stories, Cinematic Journeys of Faith, where everyday struggles meet eternal hope. Daily Prayer Stories presents Season 3, The Story of Rachel. Part 1, The Edge of Home, a mother, 2 kids, a house that's more than walls, it's everything left between hope and survival. The morning sun fell weak across the living room floor. The air smelled faintly of laundry detergent and the cheap coffee Rachel stretched to last the week. Her son's backpack sat by the door, half-zipped, the corner of a math book poking out. Across the kitchen, a stack of unopened envelopes waited, the kind with red lettering she had learned to dread. Rachel rubbed her temple and checked. The clock on the microwave. 7:42. Come on. Emma, she called. Bus will be here in 10. Her daughter ran out of the bedroom, dragging a brush through her tangled hair. Mom, I can't find my shoes. They're by the door where shoes live, Rachel said, trying to sound lighter than she felt. Her smile flickered, the kind that covers fatigue more than it hides it. Once the kids were out the door, the house fell quiet. Too quiet. She stood for a long moment at the sink, hands gripping the counter, eyes on the faded eviction notice folded neatly by the coffee pot. 2 weeks? That's what the letter said. 2 weeks to pay or vacate. She had been behind before, but this time felt different, like the ground itself was slipping away. The phone buzzed on the counter. Midwest Power and Gas. She silenced the call. Another bill she couldn't face. She'd already sent a partial payment. It hadn't been enough. Rachel sat down at the table and opened her planner pages filled with crossed-out due dates and scribbled reminders. Her job at the diner barely covered groceries, and the tips had slowed since the new chain restaurant opened down the street. Rent, electric, gas, water, car insurance, it all stacked up like a wall too high to climb. She whispered into the empty room, God, what am I supposed to do? The quiet pressed back. No booming answer. No miracle text notification, just the sound of the fridge kicking on and the faint hum of a heater. She hoped wouldn't stop working. Her eyes drifted toward the Bible on the counter. It had been weeks since she'd opened it. She pulled it closer, thumbing through pages marked by old coffee stains and folded corners. It opened to Matthew chapter 6, and her eyes landed on words she'd once underlined in blue. Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what they shall eat, or what they shall drink, nor yet for your body, what they shall put on. Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns. Yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they? Matthew chapter 6, verses 25 to 26, King James Version. She sighed. I'm trying, Lord, I really am. But the birds don't have rent due on the first. Her voice cracked at the end, and she laughed through the tears that followed. The kind of laugh that sounds more like survival than humor. The doorbell rang. Rachel froze. Her heart raced as she wiped her eyes and peeked through the window. A man in a brown jacket stood on the porch, her landlord, Mr. Donnelly. He was older, kind but firm, and had given her more extensions than most would. She opened the door halfway. Morning, she said. He nodded, shifting awkwardly. Morning, Rachel. I, just wanted to check in. I know things have been tight. She braced herself. I'm working on it. I should have part of it by Friday. He hesitated, then handed her a folded paper. I believe you. But the bank's pushing me too. I wish I had more room to give. She took the paper and nodded. Thank you for telling me in person. He stepped back. His voice soft. You've got good kids, Rachel. Don't lose heart. When he left, she closed the door and sank to the floor, holding the paper in her lap. Another notice. Another countdown. She pressed her palms to her face and whispered, Lord, if you're there, I need you to show up soon. A knock startled her again, this time softer. It was her neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, holding a bag of groceries. Got too many apples, she said with a smile. Thought your little ones might want some. Rachel blinked back tears. Thank you. That's really kind. God's been kind to me, Mrs. Jensen said. Just passing it on. When the door closed, Rachel stood in the kitchen staring at the apples. It wasn't rent money, but it was something. A reminder, maybe, that God's help didn't always come wrapped in the way she expected. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Okay, one day at a time." Then she picked up her phone and sent a text to her manager. "Can I take an extra shift this weekend?" No reply yet. But she chose to believe the same thing that had carried her this far, that somehow God still sees. That night, as she tucked in her kids, Emma whispered, "Mom, are we gonna be okay?" Rachel kissed her forehead. "Yeah, baby. God still got us." The words were small, but they were true. Part 2. Running out of light. Sometimes the hardest test of faith isn't losing what you love. It's waking up every morning not knowing how to keep the lights on. Monday morning started with a cold kitchen. The heater had shut off sometime during the night. Rachel wrapped her robe tighter and rubbed her hands together, breathing into her palms to warm them. The coffee pot clicked and hissed, but even that small sound felt comforting. She opened her phone to check her messages. There it was, one from her manager at the diner. "Hey Rachel, sorry. We had to cut hours this week. You're off Saturday and Sunday?" Her heart dropped. That extra shift she'd prayed for gone. She pressed the phone to her forehead and whispered, "Lord, please. Not this too." The kids woke soon after, chattering sleepily as they got ready for school. She kept her tone light, pretending everything was fine. But as soon as the bus pulled away, the quiet wrapped around her again too, heavy for the walls to hold. Rachel sat at the kitchen table and stared at her bills spread out like a map of impossibility. Electric, $182.17. Due now. Gas, $94.83. Final notice. Water, 46.22 past due. Rent, $1,100. Eviction pending. She ran her finger down the paper, doing mental math that never added up. If she paid the electric, they'd still lose the apartment. If she paid the rent, the lights would go dark. God, it was the kind of math that broke people before it broke numbers. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was the electric company. She let it ring until the voicemail clicked. Then she opened her Bible, same one she'd held the night before, and tried to find something that made sense. It opened to Psalm chapter 37, and her eyes fell on a verse she'd highlighted years ago. "I have been young, and now am old. Yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread." Psalm chapter 37, verse 25, King James Version. She whispered the words aloud. Not forsaken, not begging bread. Then she let the Bible fall close and exhaled hard. Then please, God, don't let me be the first. The afternoon dragged on. Rachel cleaned the apartment just to stay moving, scrubbed the counters, folded laundry, sorted mail. The fridge hummed low behind her. Inside there was milk, half a loaf of bread, peanut butter, and 2 apples for Mrs. Jensen. Dinner wouldn't be fancy, but it would be enough. At 3 p.m., the mail truck pulled up outside. Her stomach twisted as she heard the slot click. She crossed the room and picked up the mail. 3 envelopes, 2 bills, one thick and official looking from the power company. She didn't want to open it. She already knew, still, she tore it open. Disconnection scheduled for Thursday, 9 a.m. Her knees gave out before the tears did. She sank to the floor, the paper trembling in her hand. Thursday. That gave her 2 days. Lord, she said out loud, her voice shaking. I don't have 2 miracles left in me. For a while, she just sat there on the floor. No words, just breathing, crying, and breathing again. Then the sound of small feet. Emma had come home early. "Mom?" she asked, standing in the doorway. Rachel wiped her face fast and forced a smile. "Hey, sweetie. How was school?" Emma's eyes dropped to the paper in her mother's hand. "Are we gonna lose the lights?" Rachel hesitated. She'd promised herself never to lie to her kids, but she also couldn't crush them with the truth. "We might have a dark night or 2, she said softly. "But God's still with us." Even in the dark, Emma nodded slowly, walked over, and wrapped her arms around her mom. "Then he can use my flashlight," she whispered. Rachel laughed through the tears, holding her close. "Yeah, baby. He really can." That night, after the kids were asleep, Rachel sat in the kitchen again. The only light came from a candle she'd lit on the counter. The flame flickered and swayed, casting long shadows across the room. She thought about turning off her phone to save battery, but she couldn't. Part of her still hoped for a message, anything that would tell her this nightmare was about to break. When it didn't come, she whispered another prayer. Not long, not fancy. Just a few words that fit what was left of her faith. "Please, God, show up before Thursday." The candle burned low. The room grew colder. But in that dim light, she felt something stir, not a miracle yet, but a presence. Quiet, steady. The kind that doesn't fix everything, but reminds you you're not forgotten. Maybe that was enough for tonight. Part 3. When the lights went out. When the light fades. Faith has to become more than words. It has to become the air you breathe. Thursday came faster than Rachel wanted. The morning was pale and still. The kids had already left for school. The only sound in the apartment was the ticking of the clock above the stove, one of those small, cheap ones she'd bought at the dollar store years ago. She'd never noticed how loud it was until now. She made coffee with the last scoop from the tin, poured it into her chipped mug, and sat by the window. Every few minutes, she looked toward the road, waiting for the truck she knew would come at 9:07 a.m. It did. A white utility truck pulled up to the curb. 2 men climbed out, one carrying a clipboard. Rachel felt the breath catch in her chest. She opened the blinds just enough to see without being seen. She wanted to run outside to beg for more time, but shame held her still. Through the glass, she heard the faint sound of boots on gravel, the hum of a motor being turned off, and then silence. A few minutes later, the hum in her own walls faded too. The fridge stopped. The heater died. The apartment felt quiet in a way that didn't feel natural now the power was gone. She sat at the table for a long time, holding her coffee cup, though it had gone cold in the silence. She prayed not out loud, but in her thoughts, almost like breathing. "God, I don't know what you're doing, but please don't leave us now." Her phone buzzed, a message from her manager. "Rachel, I know you've been short on hours." A server called out for the weekend shift. "It's yours if you want it." She stared at the screen, hands trembling. It wasn't enough to solve everything, but it was something. Hope, small as a match in a dark room. She texted back immediately. "Yes, I'll take it. Thank you." Then she exhaled a long breath, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you, God. I hear you." But the apartment was still cold, the fridge still silent, the lights still dead by evening. The sun dipped behind the buildings, leaving only a faint orange glow through the blinds. Rachel lit 3 candles, one for the kitchen, one for the hallway, one for the kids' room. She cooked what she could on the gas stove mac and cheese, with the last bit of milk and butter. When the kids got home, Emma wrinkled her nose. "Why is it dark, Mom?" Rachel forced a smile. "Power's out for a bit, honey. We're having candlelight dinner?" Daniel grinned. "Like camping?" "Exactly," she said, grateful for his imagination. They ate together at the table, shadows dancing on their faces. It was quiet, but not the kind of quiet that hurt. For a little while, it almost felt peaceful, like the world had slowed down just enough for them to breathe. After dinner, the 3 of them curled up on the couch under a blanket. Rachel read from the children's Bible one of David's favorite stories, Noah and the Ark. When she reached the part about the rain stopping, Emma interrupted. "Mom, how did Noah know the rain would ever end?" Rachel thought for a moment. "He didn't," she said softly. "He just trusted that God would keep his promise." Emma nodded slowly, thinking it over. "So we just wait for the rainbow?" Rachel smiled, eyes glistening in the candlelight. "Yeah, baby. We wait for the rainbow." When the kids finally fell asleep, Rachel walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. The streetlights glowed faintly on either side, but her building was dark. She opened her Bible again, using her phone's flashlight to read. The page fell open to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and her eyes caught on verse 8. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verses 8 to 9, King James Version. Not destroyed, she whispered. Not destroyed. It wasn't power that lit that room, it was that verse. Later that night, a soft knock came at the door. Rachel hesitated, startled. She opened it halfway and found Mrs. Jensen, her elderly neighbor, standing there with a lantern in one hand and a small envelope in the other. Thought you might need a little extra light, she said, handing her the lantern. Rachel smiled faintly. You didn't have to. Mrs. Jensen waved it off. Also, I had a small refund from my insurance this week. It's not much, but maybe it helps. Rachel froze, staring at the envelope. I can't take. You can, Mrs. Jensen said gently. Because God's been kind to me, and he told me to share it. Tears filled Rachel's eyes. She took the envelope, whispering, "Thank you." When the door closed, she sat on the floor, opened the envelope, and found $120 in cash. Enough to call the power company and schedule a reconnection. She covered her face with her hands, and wept not the desperate tears of fear, but the broken, grateful ones of relief. God, she said between sobs, you really do still see us. The candles burned lower. The air was still cold, but Rachel's heart burned warm again. This was the beginning of Rachel's journey. A mother fighting to keep her home, her dignity, and her faith. But her story is far from over. On Wednesday, the pressure will rise. When the power returns, so will the fear. Bills still unpaid, whispers at work, and a faith that flickers like a candle in the wind. In parts 4 through 7, Rachel will face the weight of shame, an unexpected betrayal, and a moment that forces her to ask the question every believer faces when the miracle doesn't come fast enough. Is faith still faith when it costs everything? Join us Wednesday for the next chapter of The Story of Rachel. Only on Daily Prayer Stories, where real lives meet relentless grace.